Okay, so I thought I would do a video about parent preschool touring because I get a lot of parent questions about what do I look for? Can you go on a tour with me? And typically I will just go on a tour or do a tour myself and help the preliminary process of a parent picking out of preschool. But I thought I would do a video because I can't really always be available to do that these days. So my top things to look for and to ask about are security, discipline, teaching style, toileting, parent communications, injuries, and supervision. These are like my go-to after doing a bajillion parent tours and learning what parent questions they have. A lot of it's academic, a lot of academic questions, but let's be real. In early childhood, the focus should be on social and emotional development. If the teachers and the staff and the program is focused on social and emotional development, they are going to be getting what they need academically. If we're feeding academics to these kiddos and they are not socially and emotionally meeting their needs, they are not going to be processing academics and be ready. So a lot of parents are worried about like that reading processing and getting ready for all that, and there's so many preliminary things that we do, and that can be part of another video, but that everything that they learn is going to be short-term memory unless we are meeting their social emotional needs. And as a parent who is looking for a preschool, you need to be comfortable with the preschool that they are in or educational environment in order to meet that social emotional need. So let's look at this from a developmental safe environment and not necessarily an academic perspective. Okay, so I definitely would say look for an accredited school. If it is a Catholic school, they're probably going to be accredited, and we're in California here. They're going to be probably accredited by WASC. WASC is a fabulous accreditation. I've been through that accreditation process. It is arduous, but it is great, and that there's a lot of great aspects to it. You get that religious aspect as well. So I don't know if they've actually finished and completed the early childhood portion of the accreditation, but if the school has been through WASC, they have gone through it. It just hasn't been it's not on the same evidence report as the other upper grades. So if you are looking for a secular school, a public school, NIEYC is a great accreditation. I've been through that through 3 cycles, and it is arduous, but it is a really incredible accreditation. It covers every area to a T, from safety to developmental to administration to curriculum, you name it. So that's one thing that I would look for as a parent, the accreditation, because it doesn't just look at curriculum, it looks at the whole environment as a broad. Okay, so and of course there are a lot of other state funded programs, Easter Seals, Head Start, that go through their own portion of state accommodations that they have to abide by. And it's really great because we all want our schools to be made accountable, right? And make sure that our children are being not just cared for, but getting the appropriate care at curriculum, across the board, everything. So to go right into securities, okay, so we're going into a school, we're touring it. Of course, everything's going to be pretty and positive and everything. Things to look for is security. What is their security system? Is there a code to get into the door? Do you have your own code? Does everybody have the same code? Do we share that code? Are they willy-nilly with that code? I've been in schools where everybody has the same code, and sometimes the code is even posted on the gate, and it's kind of like, well, what's the point of having a code if you're just going to give it out? So ask about that. I've been in some schools where everybody has to sign in on a computer. There are some schools where you have to sign in on a sign-in sheet with your signature. So whatever, it's going to be what your comfort level is, of course, but just think about like who's coming into the school, who has access to the school, grandma's parents, aunts, friends, whoever's on your pickup list, whoever's on somebody else's pickup list. You want to ask those questions. What is the pickup process? Who can just come into the school, who cannot come into the school? Of course, they're not going to let anybody go by law who is not on an authorized sign-in sheet. You're going to have a file of who's authorized and who isn't authorized, and of course your child isn't going to be allowed to go with that person, but also who has access to just walk into the classroom or who doesn't. So keep that in mind. Discipline is a huge thing that as a parent I want to know. How are you interacting with my child when my child is misbehaving? Because children are going to misbehave. They don't know, they're learning. And what is your go-to as a teacher, but also what is the philosophy of the program? Do we do timeouts? Do they take a break? What type of tone do we use? Do we use shame? Do we use emotional manipulation? All those different things. So I have a couple videos on as a parent and a teacher how to not use those things, but you kind of want to look out for those trigger words when you are asking your administration or meeting the teacher and asking. These are great questions to ask them when you're interviewing them as well. Okay, so a teaching style, it's great to ask a teacher or an admin like, hey, what's this? You're showing me this classroom, this teacher, what would you say is her teaching style or his teaching style? And that can kind of give you an idea if the director really knows her teachers and or what you're looking for as a parent. Maybe this teacher is not as nurturing. We have some more nurturing teachers than others, and your child is a little hypersensitive and needs that nurturing. Or maybe they don't, and that's not really on your concern list. So just be aware of those. That's a great question to ask. Another area to look at is toileting. My child is going to be going to the bathroom. They may or may not have an accident. What does that process look like? Who will be changing my child? Where will their clothes be? When they change them, will they be wiping them down? Who will be doing that? Do you use gloves? All of these things, of course, are supposed to be happening, but it's great for you to ask questions because, for one, it reminds them that to follow protocol, but also that you're going to be watching out for these things as their child is going to school. So if a child has an accident, do I provide the wipes? What wipes will they be using? Will they be using a school provided wipe? How will I know what that wipe is in case they have an allergic reaction? Do you wipe my child after they go to the bathroom if they need help because they are still learning? Or do you encourage them to do it themselves? Or maybe teachers don't wipe at all and I need to work on my child to help them wipe themselves. Those are great questions and things to be aware of because our children are still really little and vulnerable, and we want them to be capable but also supported in a safe way. Parent communications. How are you going to communicate with me as a parent on how my child's day was? Of course, every parent wants to know everything that their child did that day, and I sympathize with that, but the reality is that so many schools right now are doing this electronic information. You know, there's apps, there's messages, there's pictures that we can upload daily. But just remember this as a parent. If your child's teacher in school is updating you on everything that they are doing, they are probably not with their children. And as a teacher and an administration, they are not with your child or children, because there are multiple, if they are on the iPad updating you on everything. Typically, teachers will take that nap time to do that, but sometimes there's just not time to do that because they are needed at nap time for those resters that are struggling. And so just be cognizant of wanting that information and realizing that if you are getting that constant information, your child is not really probably getting the one-on-one that they need. And the number one goal for your child to be in that program is to be cared for. And it's really hard to be cared for if the person, an adult in their life, is on a computer device or an electronic device. When you're on your phone with your child, are you giving them 100% attention? Probably not. So the reality is that please, be aware and don't beg or expect or demand those updates, because you want your child's educator and education team to be with your child and to be with your child's peers, because then if they're on the floor with your child, they're going to be able to mitigate situations and problems so that your child is not coming home concerned and having a hard time. So that's like my biggest pet peeve is parent communications. But if your education team is on the floor with your child and aware of what's happening, they're going to be able to share something really special with you that day. Maybe your child had an accident, but they're like, hey, he didn't have an accident, and he just was he was going and was in the moment, and he was just so busy, and they're still, toileting is still an area of learning, and you just got to pee on him in the process, and we changed him, and this happened. The more you can share with those intimate situations that happen on a one-on-one is going to build your connection with your educating team, as well as your comfort zone with knowing, okay, my child is really being cared for. And it doesn't necessarily have to be toileting. It could be like, oh my gosh, they were reading this story today, and this friend like really connected with another peer. It was just such a great connection. Those little things that we miss out on, we want to share them, and your team is going to be able to share that with you if they are on the floor with your child. So just keep that in mind. Okay, another one is injuries. Oh, of course, you want to know everything that happened scrape-wise. And this is a question that you're going to ask. What is their process of reporting owies, ouches, whatever you call them, injuries and illness? If my child gets hurt, how am I going to know? For me as an administration, if it is from the shoulders and above, we call you and we say, hey, this happened, we're okay, but I just want you to know so that you're not walking in the door seeing that your child has a scratch on their face or something. Anything having to do with the face is just a little bit more a red flag. And so there's ouch reports that can go home, ask for those. There's notes that can go before you pick up, whether it's on an app or a phone call. If there is an injury or an illness that you don't know about when you pick up, I would raise that question. It's not that anybody's doing anything bad. It's just you would, as a parent, probably like to know before you get there. And that can be a question that you ask, like what does that process look like? Illnesses, the question I would ask is, what do you do when a child is sick? Who do you notify? Do you tell everybody who's sick in the classroom? Am I going to be outed? What does that process look like? What should I expect? A paper, a phone call, whatever. And then you'll know kind of how serious they take illnesses. And we're not in COVID. We're not talking about like COVID protocols. We're talking about being responsible program, so this decreases the infectious things that are out there. I want you to know that if you are entering a program, whether your child has been in a program or they're moving to a new program, whenever your child starts a new program, they will get sick. And that is their immune system building and growing with new germs. Not all germs are bad. Your child, that's how they build their immune system, right? They're exposed to new germs, they get sick, they get a cold. It's not the end of the world. They're building their immune system so that when they get something more serious, their body is ready to fight it. We want their bodies to do that. Now, what you're going to ask for is, when another child is vomiting in their classroom, if their child has a fever, what is the protocol? How is my child going to be impacted from these exposures? There are a lot of communicable diseases that happen in preschool, unfortunately. Lice, hand, foot, and mouth, scabies. I haven't heard so much in the community, but it can still happen. Ringworm is something that happens because there's a lot of moisture still happening with bodily fluids with children that are young, who are still drooling, having diapers and those things going on. So those are just things to be aware of. It's not that the school may be unsanitary, but you do want to know what their protocol is to make sure that they are being accountable for notifying parents, as well as preventing the continuous contagious communicable diseases. So ask those questions. And last but very important, what is their supervision? And when you ask about supervision, you're going to want to ask about ratios. What's the ratio in the classroom? What's the ratio on the playground? When do the teachers take their breaks? When do the teachers take their lunch? What is the ratio at nap time? Because those things will change, and there are ratios that need to be held for California state licensing. So by law, the ratio is 1:12 for in classrooms, actually at all times. However, when they're napping, that goes down. So there's different times in the day where that ratio will go down. And depending on the behaviors that are happening in the classroom, the classroom management skills level for the educating team, that can all change. And so if you notice children getting hurt a lot, your child's coming home and the teachers are like, oh, I don't know how that happened, more often than not, then we probably need to look a little bit at supervision. And as an administration and a parent and a teacher, prior teacher, it's really important to maintain supervision. And I'm not talking about supervision that's like, I'm here doing my work and I'm looking, I mean like on the floor, participating and supervising, because supervision just isn't watching, it's participating and intervening and all that good stuff. And so, and that's in the classroom and on the playground. And typically on the playground, supervision can be a little bit less enforced because it can be a time to talk with other teachers, not necessarily just socializing, but maybe you need to talk to a teacher about child's behavior, and that's really the only time that you get. And so we just want to make sure as parents and admin that is appropriate, and the duration is not coming into interrupting your supervision time and being an effective supervisor on the playground. So those are questions to ask. I hope that was helpful for you as a parent looking for the best program for your child. If you have any questions, you can always let us know, and I can let you know what I've experienced, what questions I would ask as a parent, knowing how a program runs as an administration in an early childhood setting. So have a great day. Don't forget to process and play. Take care.